right. Everybody could please, with your phone, just silence it, okay? So that way it's not ringing during the meeting. Okay, so today it is Monday, 6th February, it is 2 p.m. and I call the meeting of the Fresh Waterways Advisory Board call that to order, okay? So first we'll do a roll call. We have Greg. And just so everyone knows that today is Greg's last advisory board. Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you. And then we have John Pike, and we have John Carnes, and Grant Schaefer. Okay, Phyllis will not be here today. And Joe, has anyone heard from Joe? No. Joe, check. Okay. All right. And then for guests, we have Mayor John Martin. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. And we have Richard Wills. And if you guys want to come up to the table, you can, even though the pictures are there.
Okay.
And we have Jane Shattuck. And Nani Bacon. Jim Golden. And then let's see, on Zoom, we have Don Williams. And
Vita Piera.
oh, Vita, okay. Vita Piera. Is there anyone else?
Nope,
No, Bob and Carol Rhodes? or
not
anything?
as of yet.
And Bruce, the president of the Fresh Waterways Corporation, he will not be in attendance. Okay. All righty. So approval of minutes of our January 23rd meeting. I sent those out. Now, you probably realize that there was another version that I sent out the following day with the corrected minutes. And I just wanted to let you know what that correction was. That correction was actually at the part where John Carnes was asking Sarah Bisson about the grants. And after Phyllis and I looked this over, I realized that it was a little confusing, asking specifically about the history of grants. So I did a little too much paraphrasing and it actually took it out of context. Okay, so what I did is I went back in and did it verbatim. Okay, so. All right, so first, do I have any board members that would like to make any corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes? All right, so do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written, the corrected minutes as written? I moved it. Greg, thank you. Second. All those in favor, aye. All right, any opposed? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next will be public comment. And so we'll go ahead and we'll start over here. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to say?
First of all, I just want to appreciate the work the board does. I mean, there's so much stuff you have to do. I was very optimistic about the presentation that was done at the city chats. And I think it really encapsulates of everything that I think we all know, that there's not going to be a single answer, for anything. And I not knowing what he's actually going to write up, but I think it's things that we can look at. I would encourage the board to continue to stay focused on the important things of solving the issues we have with the fresh waterways. I mean, there's just, how do we deal with, how do we make it good for everybody, which is really hard, because I get, that obviously, I don't think there's anyone on this board that believes using chemicals is the end all. but at the same token that, I struggle with people who call and when they can't get their boat down the Grand Canal. I know that some of the people in the room have been here for a long time, so you've seen where you used to be able to fish to where you couldn't take your boat down and all those type of things. So, I think that from a city's point of view, that we're open to all ideas. We just don't know what those ideas are and whether or not we can actually afford to do whatever it's going to be. And of course, we have the continuing issue of dealing with state departments on what we can do and what we can't do. As we found, just a simple thing of cleaning the overhead ditch and the minnow being there, added cost and things that we do and wetland mitigation and all that stuff. But I appreciate you guys fighting the battle. The city is in support of getting the studies done, so we can actually formulate a type of a policy to move forward. And I know that the council is very anxious to start working on small steps, whatever that needs to be. And I appreciate the work that you guys do in these meetings, because without your involvement, it'd make it a lot harder for us from the city's point of view to do things. So you guys are doing the research, and I appreciate the history that you bring to the table. And because I would love to see harvesting. I mean, whatever that means to be, I just haven't seen. I think it was working right when I moved here, and then it stopped work. I mean, we stopped doing it. So, I'm anxious to see if we actually have the harvesting to come back and see just what that looks like, because at least we will be able to make those adjustments. But again, I appreciate the job you guys do.
Thank you very much. Okay, Richard Wills.
So I'm here not as a council member, but as a resident of the city, and very concerned and very active in trying to help keep our waterways navigable and so they can use everything to fishing or kayaking or wildlife tours or whatever. I was very, very interested in Thursday's city chat meeting with Terry McMahon. And to that end, there was a lot of talk about mechanical harvesting. And I remember Doug Dorman talking about mechanical harvesting, and I went and looked up his old slideshows. They're available on Ocean Shores Fresh Waterways Corporation's website. So I printed up a little flyer that I invite Steve to pass around to everybody. And if there's any left over, then the public over here is also welcome to them. And it's just facts. Doug's facts don't necessarily agree with Terry's, and Terry's are probably more accurate. But these give some kind of ballpark figures. For example, one of the things I remember is how many acres can be mechanically harvested in a day. And according to Doug Jordan's information, about 2 to 3 acres, depending on how far you have to go to offload and yada, yada, yada. So those are the kind of facts I captured in that slide, in that handout. And I invite everybody to look at that, and my purpose is to kind of prime the pump for when the city gets to that point of discussing what's our future action going to be. Already pointed out, it's going to take a multi-pronged approach, and I just want to riff on that. It's going to take a multi-pronged approach. I agree with what the mayor said. Spraying is part of that approach. Mechanical harvesting is part of that approach. Probably phosphorus treatment, and who knows what else. Very studies will uncover.
Okay, thank you, Richard. How about you, Jane?
I just want to say I appreciate all the work you guys are doing too. As you know, I just started coming to the Fresh Waterways meeting, and it looks like, you know, there's a lot of looking into different solutions and just getting all the facts and studies done that need to be done to try and move forward. So I enjoyed being here and listening and watching things slowly progress and hopefully moving along. So thank you all for what you do.
Okay, thank you. Nani.
At the meeting that we had, I had asked for a schedule of when each of the treatments, be it using that technique there, or even to spray, or whatever you guys do to eradicate the condition. Is there a possibility for you to put together a schedule when they're going to be done, or when it was done and how long before the next treatment will be done? Would that be possible?
Okay. So you know, I don't do Q&A, right, during this portion, so you actually didn't stick around.
Oh,
Remember I said, when you asked that
you
same
were
thing?
busy with
Yeah, I
that.
know, but I didn't understand what you wanted, but now I do.
Okay,
So can you, after this meeting? And then you and I will talk about that.
sure.
Good. Hey, Joe, how are you? Doctors. Gotcha. Okay, we got you now. All right, so can you do that?
Yeah,
All
sure.
right, so I can talk a little bit more about that. All right, Jim, go.
I was refreshed to see the Parks Board that have been on one of their fresh waterways meetings. And I think it's good that the city kind of is getting a cross weaving of departments where we can see things accomplished and move forward with our thinking. So I think we're heading in a very positive direction.
And you'll see me at the Parks Board meeting on Wednesday. Okay. All righty, so. And then let's see, and then who came on was
Frank.
Frank Elderman. Okay, so let's see, online, Don Williams, do you have any public comment?
Just to say thank you for all the good work that's going on. I'm happy to see that the study is progressing. So thanks a lot for all your effort.
Thank you, Don, and Vita?
Hi, Steve. I also want to echo Dawn in thanking you and the board for all the work that you've done. I don't have any other comments right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then Frank.
I have no other comments. Thanks for all that you do.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So, did I get everybody?
Marshall.
No, I know, but I got rid of a couple of things. Marshall, do you have anything on the agenda?
Oh, just Marshall.
I don't, I just feel great to have been made it here.
Awesome. Well, I thought it was gonna be a pretty stormy, windy day, but turns out it's not so bad, so that's good. All righty, so we got everybody, right? The public comment, okay, great. All righty, so next is the Freshwater Waste Corporation report. And as I said, Bruce Malloy is not going to be able to make it today. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna play a clip from last meeting where Bruce put out the Freshwater Waste Corporation report. Can I play that before you?
You can play that.
Okay, so I'm gonna play that, and then after that, whatever you wanna add to that or for a corporation report.
Yep.
Okay, all right, Sarah, can you play that? All right. Did I miss? All right, okay.
It's gonna come out of here.
So, we'll go ahead and move on to Freshwater Waste Corporation report by Bruce Malloy.
Okay, we're just finishing up gathering and purchasing the hardware for placing the buoys. We're also researching and looking at what it would take to resurrect our harvester. We'll talk about that later. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, Brent, thank you, Bruce.
It's pretty much a continuation of the previous. We're currently on the buoys, we're waiting for channels to be cleared between the city and the corporation to make an account at West Marine. So we can go ahead and get the materials, get it processed, and get it ready to go. We have the buoys and the concrete anchors sitting in Bruce's shop, and they're waiting to go. And so that's the status of the buoys. The harvester, we're looking at serious thought of getting that reactivated. Where it is in the operational pictures, I found my CD that has got a lot of pictures of the harvester in operation. And you want to make sure you look at these.
We have got about $32,000 into it. That's from the corporation and from volunteers. And we've got, we did, there's 3 cutters on there. We powered the low bottom cutters as a prototype. And we were successful, won the whole season. We got about 120 bags. This is 6-foot diameter and about 12 feet long of weeds. And we wore out the operators as much as everybody else because it was new and there's some manual work in it that we're working on resolving the manual work. We had to put 2 people on the harvester when we operated because we didn't have the side cutters working to cut the mass of the mat of weeds loose so we could get it in our bags. And so we had to have a second guy just pulling the weeds in. And this was the case with the Bell Canal entrance. It was so thick, it was a mat, you could almost walk on it. And this was Eladia. And so I'd run a harvester and my associate would be up there with a long 2x2 pole, pull the weeds in because there were so many weeds that we couldn't get our way through. And that's because the side cutters weren't operational. I was at my machinist friend's place the last week. And I think we've got the answer to the problem. It's a simpler mechanism and cheaper. And it's just a matter of a small arrangement change. And then we can power all 3. And so the bags need some repair work on them. The 95% of the harvester can be put back together again, except I'm too old to crawl around and put it back together with all the little bolts again. And so we're gonna need more access points. We're gonna need someone from the city, manpower, some young buck that wants to learn the ropes of harvesting weeds. And then once we do that, get it back together, we'll have a harvester that costs a fraction of any other harvester. And we can do what we want to do. It's just a matter of having volunteers with their little chase boat. It only takes about a 5 to 10 horse motor. Pull bags to one of these access points. And then we're looking at getting some help from the city to get the bags out and get them into the dump trailer. And so we're progressing on that right now. And I'm excited. And I'd be glad to put one harvester against the other because we never shut our harvester down, only to change bags. And so, and each bag takes, I don't know, well, figure out what 6-foot wide diameter with about 12 foot long, how many weeds that'll hold. And so, and there's no shuttling back time that's lost. So once turned on and it's running, it runs continuously. And so, then I have pictures over there. I just found the pictures and I got a printed. And there's many different aspects of the harvesting. We're pursuing putting the harvester back together. And it's just exciting.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, do you happen to have any video of it in
No,
action? No. Maybe somebody does. We can probably ask.
this was all pretty much volunteer money, volunteer people operating it. And so,
Okay. Perfect.
and I can only be one place at one time.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, and so I know that I'm not a trustee of the corporation. But what I want to add onto that, so this is not actually coming from the corporation, this is coming from me as a chair of the advisory board. I want to make sure that everyone understands that this harvesting machine is not owned by the city. The harvesting machine is owned by the Fresh Waterways Corporation. So therefore, it's not up to the city to figure it out, get the harvesting machine out there. And that's the reason why I played that clip, is so you could hear it from Bruce, and you just heard it again from Grant, is that the corporation is figuring out how to resurrect the harvesting machine so that it can go and do its thing in our waterway. So I want to make sure everyone understands the city does not own a harvesting machine. Okay,
I'll add to that, just
okay,
one of the things that's down the road is not yet resolved is how to best use it, if it is profitable. And I mean, who's gonna own it? Is somebody gonna own it? Currently, the corporation owns it. But the corporation is starting to use a lot of walkers and canes and everything like
there's
that.
a lot of stuff.
And they're not gonna be out there operating this thing. They need new people. And if there's someone in the city, the young buck that wants to get in the ropes early in the game, to know how to operate it, maintain it, there's minimal maintenance on it. And the second thing that needs to be worked through is we need to locate a source where we can take this stuff.
Yeah.
And whether it be the land soil guy out here or farmer association or somewhere for it to be used, not just dumped, but used. So,
Well, that's where the advisory board, and Bruce and I have had a little conversation about it, but I was just waiting until he got it a little bit more figured out. But we're gonna have a conversation about all of those things, and then what solutions can we come up with, and then figure out who best to address that to. So,
yeah,
yeah, we'll be doing that, okay?
yeah.
Perfect, all righty. So, John, you're on the corporation, anything to add to that?
Just, yeah, just follow up with what Grant said, and what Bruce has said. Our big main first step is actually getting this thing back together. And Lisa Malloy gives me, but as I've said time and time again, I'm the youngest one on the corporation. And I'm getting too old for that stuff. So we would love to, we've got some ideas, we're actually having a meeting Wednesday, we'll talk about it further, but the big first step is getting the machine back together.
Okay, perfect. All righty then. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move right into old business. First old business is the IAVMP. So, I think almost all of us were there that night, and what's good to report is that the IAVMP is in its final stage. And we had at the Mayor City Chat this last Wednesday, it was the presentation to the city. And then a time for the residents to make comments. And so he will take all of that, and he's working on it right now. And he said that Terry McNabb told me that he would have it within the next few weeks. Okay? Trust me, as soon as, and he will not send that to me, it might CC me on it, but it actually is a product for the city. So it would probably be sent to Ginny Belcher. It's probably who would get it. And I'm sure they'll tell me as soon as they get it, and then I will ask the city clerk if we can get that posted on the website. After it's, I guess, accepted by the city, is that how that has to work? And then delivered to Fish and Wildlife or Ecology, whatever that process is, city will do their thing, then the advisory board will do ours. Okay, so it will get posted. All right, board members, any comments or anything you want to talk about IAVMP? No, we're all good?
I thought Terry did an excellent job of presentation. And you busting butt getting it going, so.
Not easy there. Okay, all right, anything else? No, we're good, all right. All right, so next we have lake management study, and I'm gonna go ahead and just cover both the lake management study and the stormwater master plan at the same time. And what I will be doing, I really don't have anything to update from our meeting we had 2 weeks ago. Where Scott Anderson, the city administrator, was here with rock management. So I will be contacting Ann Reese, who's the project manager. And I'll be contacting her and hopefully have an update for the next meeting as to where we are with those 2 projects. Okay? You guys have anything on that? Any comment? No, we're good. All right, Marshall, hydraulic, the HPA for the hazardous limb tree removal maintenance.
I have not started on the application process yet to get that out to Fish and Wildlife. And it's on my list.
All right, do you need anything from us to help out or?
No, I don't think so. It's just a matter of, seeing what we provided last time, and if it turns out that you guys need to provide something, I'll reach out.
Okay, perfect. All right, anything else?
I've got a brand new meter that's sitting in our office
Yes,
that you guys are welcome to.
yeah, the YSI meter.
Yeah,
So that was actually, I'll shoot Bruce an email. And so maybe they can talk about it. It wouldn't go to the advisory board, it would go to the corporation.
okay.
And I was just waiting. I think when you and I were over at his house, we talked about the water meter, right? Yeah. So I probably at their meeting on Wednesday, they'll probably talk about it, but I will get back to you very soon with who will come pick it up.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. You guys have anything on that or any questions for Marshall or? No? Does everybody understand what we're talking about, the hydraulic permit? Yeah, okay. All righty, request for, oh, you want to know what, I'm sorry, before I move on. That Marshall, the hydraulic project approval permit, does that also encompasses what residents can remove from the shoreline that is?
No, we don't allow the residents to take a piece of equipment near the water without an HPA. And currently, the only time that's being done is when they're hydraulically washing the posts in for the docks that are being installed. The clearing of the 4-foot pathway down to the lake is not an equipment type thing that they're bringing down. So they don't need the HPA for that, but they do need it for the dock installation.
Okay, so then, which Poplar does most of the docks around here, Poplar
The
would
lion's
use
share.
that permit as well for the docks?
No, he files for an HPA every time he does a dock.
Okay.
Every dock has its own HPA.
I understand that, okay, all right. Okay, so the next that we have, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Grant.
We use access to the lake for pulling trees, pulling brush, all that out of the waterway.
Right.
What used to be about 12 inches deep is now muck. Okay, we can't get our barge near the shore very easily. We have to almost go to a boat launch to get the barge anywhere near the beach where it can be offloaded. What's the complications of backing a hole in there and just taking some of that muck out so we can get the boat in?
So that's considered dredging, when you start disturbing the bottom. And that falls in, that's where you get into shoreline permitting. It's a full-on substantial development permit. The Corps has, or not the Corps, the Department of Ecology will have oversight on that. Most likely there will be a process of public hearings. When you start talking about digging in the bottom of a lake, it's not as simple as
Well,
like
yes,
pulling
that's
weeds and
true.
stuff like that.
That's true, but this is like muck that's drying up.
Yep.
And it's not solid bottom of the lake. It's just half floating.
Well, Marshall, you've been over at Grants when we need.
Yeah, I know, and I understand what you're saying, there's just a process for that, when you start wanting to put a bucket in the water.
Yeah,
And it's not an HPA, it's a full-on shoreline permit.
uh-huh,
The Corps, when you start working below the ordinary high water mark of the lake, then the Corps gets involved.
uh-huh.
Along with ecology to approve, the permit to do that. We could make a project out of that if you have a specific area. And there would have to be a plan put together and a proposal, and then start the process.
Okay, how about if you have a set of forks, like a manure fork? It's wide, it's only got like 1-inch prongs. And they're like, maybe 4 feet long. Put that in the water underneath a bag of weeds, can we do that without, lift the weeds out?
When we start talking about putting equipment in the water below the ordinary high water mark, I would like to consult with ecology so that we don't end up with some sort of an issue.
So if you have an opportunity, would you ask them?
I will.
And, get back to me, because we gotta come up with
A way to work it.
a way to make the system work.
Yep, I agree.
Brent, do you have some pictures maybe you could forward to Marshall of what you're talking about, just so he could,
Well, we got pictures here. of the
I know,
bag.
but I mean like today, or
Yeah,
recent pictures that he could see what it is you're talking about.
no, just these pictures is all I have right now. But you can see the bag, the way it's in the, right at the top of the water, we just have to go underneath the bag or through it. And just took the forks back and then lift them out. And that's as far as, just getting the weeds out. And then the muck is right up to the surface. And you can almost walk out there.
So I think the shoreline master program gives a distance of 15 feet as far as a piece of equipment being able to access the waterways. So if you're within 15 feet, then you're required to have at a minimum an HPA, which I think our HPA that I'll be applying for will cover that kind of stuff. It's when we get below the ordinary high water mark that I start getting a little concerned.
Yeah,
So I'll have a conversation with Zach about that and find out if that's gonna put us into a full-blown shoreline permit.
yeah.
Okay, good deal. All righty, so the next is the request for proposal for the aquatic plant management 2023-2024, which coincides with the biennium budget for the city. So that RFP was sent out by Ginny Belcher last week. And I believe she sent it out last Tuesday, Wednesday. They're due back to the bids, they're due back to the city 12 February. And then after she receives those bids will, whatever Jenny does, she'll do her thing, send that here to myself at the advisory board. And then the board will review those and we will give the city a recommendation on whoever did the bid. Whoever completed a bid for the job, a recommendation on who we think. It's ultimately up to the city to decide, and council would have to review and approve in order to enact that RFP and turn it into a PSA. Does anybody have any questions about that? So I would suspect to think that that's probably going to be a large portion of our meeting, unless for March 6th, unless Jenny says that she needs to have it back before that. Okay, so I'll be in touch with everybody as soon as I get those, and we'll figure out what we need to do in order to get together, which would need to be obviously in a public meeting, and then turn that around quickly so that we can get it on council approval to get moving. Now, that's going to be important to get done, especially for this year, because that's going, once the PSA is signed by the contractor and the city, then that's when it begins, and that's when the whole getting on the schedule for the survey, what we're gonna do with mechanical harvesting, if there will be any herbicide treatment, where, when, and all of that good stuff. So this year is really important. Next year, it's a 2-year contract, so it won't be quite as important. All right, so once again, before I move on, any questions about the RFP? No, okay. All righty. So new business. Now, what I added there under new business is I added ad hoc committees. And I think what I'm looking to do here is I came up with a couple of ideas we could have for ad hoc committees to really and truly get some things moving that is just really difficult to have long discussions in this forum. Plus ad hoc committees, you can go out and you can ask residents if they want to be part of an ad hoc committee. Sarah, can we ask a city employee if they wanted to be part of an ad hoc, like if we wanted Marshall to be part of one?
That would go through the mayor.
It'd go through the mayor.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So that's something to consider. Here's just a couple of the ad hoc committees I thought would be good. So the first one that I came up with was the Storm Utility City FTE. Okay. And that's the one where we will write a proposed position description, get that to the city, probably the mayor and city administrator, and then that would start the process of moving forward to take to council, to have council fund the position where the city could do the hiring for that job. Okay, but that's going to require some serious getting into the weeds of what could even be in that position description as far as union things that the city employees are and all of that. And as you can see, this form is just really difficult. Okay. So what I kind of thought was if we had somebody who, a board member who wanted to head up that ad hoc committee. And then we can't have more than 3 advisory board members on any ad hoc committee, because then now we would be creating a quorum. Okay, so no more than 3. Then give it a couple of months, there'd be a deadline attached to it of when it was due to the board, and then that ad hoc committee could present that to the board. We could do a quick discussion or long discussion, whatever, and move it on, instead of just keep going agenda after agenda and try to get it through during a meeting. Okay, so that's one. The next one I thought is education program. We really kind of have been kicking that can down the road for a long time, right? And that's the one that I was thinking about Marshall, because part of that is what residents can and cannot do on that easement, that high water line and things like that. That's a small part of it, but still a very important part of educating residents on what you can and can't. Then another one was I thought that this would be a good one. I'm gonna go ahead and say it out loud. I hope Kristen Hartman doesn't get mad at me because I haven't talked to her about it yet. But if both boards wanted to get together and form one ad hoc committee and strategize with what the 2 boards can come up with to collaborate on projects that are going to help the parks and the waterways. Just sort of spitballing boat ramps, boat ramp docks. A couple of them are making me a little nervous in certain parts, things like that. Obviously, the stormwater utility fund that is used to fund projects within the fresh waterways cannot be used to go and buy playground equipment and things like that. But they certainly could be looked into seeing, can we do repairs on docks that go out into the waterways, even though it's a park project and things like that. Okay, Kristen and I, we kind of just dabbled into it in one of our meetings, and we really didn't take it much further. So hence the reason why I'm going on Wednesday, so I can get ahead of that a little bit. And then the last one that I thought was the IAV MP brainstorm, and what I kind of thought would be good is to get at least one advisory board member, maybe 2, One, kind of on two sides of that panel, so I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it out there, give a name. Joe Bruchek, right? We have to have that, and then, John Carnes, John Pike, me, one of the others. Then you can go and get residents that are on both sides of that fence, and then those who are right smack dab in the middle, if you will, right? And go through this IABMP, figure it out, and then come up with a possible way forward. Now, that would be using only the IABMP, knowing that we're still gonna have future studies. The lake management study, stormwater master plan, and then the LCMP, the lake cyanobacteria management plan. Okay, I look at you guys. But all of those things are all gonna be part of it, okay? So especially since Phyllis, the vice chair, isn't here, and she and I, we talked in great detail about this. If we want to talk about it, we can, but I really wanted to, for this meeting, at least just drop a seed. Right? And you guys can think about it. If you think it's a bad idea, shout that out. It's a good idea if you're interested in doing it, not interested in doing it. If you want to just wait until all members are at the next meeting, we can do that. Whatever.
I think they're great ideas. I think they each have their own benefit. I think they'll all take a little bit of time. But they need to concentrate on the IVAN, because that's a pressing issue right now, with the residents and board. I think they're all great to do, absolutely.
Any of those interest you?
A couple of them, the IVAN does, because I think it needs to be a big correlation between board members, the city, and more of the public. I think we had approximately 50 people at the city chat, and we have, a couple thousand waterside residents. And a lot of people do come to Ocean Shore for many different reasons, and then also the education portion of what we can do in the water and about the waterways.
Okay. All right. Jeff?
No, I think it kind of gets certain people focusing on one thing rather than your head being all over the place. Because there is a lot about this area that got to be dealt with. There is a lot. I'm thinking of fish and wildlife.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of what's going on here too.
It is.
We got an issue with fish and wildlife. I don't know if that'd be all fall under the
I actually kind of think so. Yeah.
But that's where my focus has really been on. That's why I joined this committee, was to be part of trying to get our fishery back again. I mean, I want to see our fishery back again.
Well, here's a really good example, right? And the reason why I thought of you for IAVMP is that let's see. Yes, everybody, Marshall wasn't there, but everybody else was there. So nobody's gonna say, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but when you and Terry had that conversation about what weed coverage there should be side of state of Mississippi coverage, I get that, but sort of follow me, right? Is in the state of Mississippi, right, with, it's what he cited, and then you cited Fish and Wildlife. And I hear what you're saying, Fish and Wildlife did say that. I actually believe that they said 60%, but yeah, so.
And it's online too. You can go do the research on it. And every website you go to says the same thing, about 50 to 60% of weed growth.
Yeah.
Should have it in a healthy lake.
So there's actually two things where I think that is a conversation that must be had in a very in-depth way, right? And listen to what everyone has to say is, number one, needs to be part of this IABMP, I think, right? Number two is it absolutely must be part of the lake management study. We can't have somebody come in here to do a lake management study and it should be, well, here you go, it's 482 acres and blah, 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 blah. These are all things we already know, right? So we really have to delve into not just the true, the history of it, right? But we also need to delve into what do you want to use the lake for? What do the residents want? We have folks who are avid anglers and they want all that need the weed coverage in order for wildlife to thrive, right? So, and we have boaters, we have paddle boarders, kayaks, all of that stuff, right? And so everyone wants to use the lake, there has to be a way that we can come together and figure that out, right? Is it certain areas where we really will concentrate on the weeds and everyone knows, hey, look, you're just gonna have to deal with the weeds in that area, But when you start talking about weeds and very narrow canals and even a little bit of weed makes it so it becomes more than a navigation nuisance, it might actually be a navigation hazard, right? But those are all things that I think that people can sit down and talk about. Probably even get out on the water on a boat and talk about those things so people can actually see and do, right? So anyways, but I thought that would be a good one, okay? So you would be interested maybe in doing something? like that?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to have somebody help me with that. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to tackle that alone. That's a lot of work.
Sure.
Probably something like grant or something.
So, Sarah, the city council has done ad hoc committee before, right?
Yeah, it was actually really successful during the comprehensive plan. They took the whole comprehensive plan and broke it down into chapters or subjects. And then they had their individual ad hoc committees work on them, and then they'd bring back and they'd report where they were, or they would just bring back the red line ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
And who actually headed that up? Was there one council member who?
No, they just split, each chapter they volunteered.
And then they set up their own ad hoc
Yeah,
committee. Okay, all right, so we can
Well,
talk.
the mayor pro tem, which was John at the time, appointed by volunteer, like they, at the council meeting, they volunteered and he appointed them.
Okay. So if we wanted to do an ad hoc committee, then we can, I want to make sure that we're doing it in line with the way that if there's any state.
No,
Regulation.
there's not, it's just
You
3
can
members,
do it?
but
Okay.
you can, and you don't have to necessarily appoint, it can just be a raise of
It can
hand.
just be,
That's just a formality that the council uses.
sure, okay, all righty. Okay, so I think maybe, if you guys are cool, what we can do is, I've dropped the seed, we've talked a little bit, and then I'll talk to maybe a council member or two, just to find out how that went for them and what they did and all of that. I could delve in a little bit more to find out, well, you said if we did want to ask any city employees, we'd have to go through the mayor and city administrator.
Yeah, you would have to request that.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, so we know that part. Okay, all right, do you guys want to talk about it anymore? You want to just wait till next meeting? Because I know Phyllis has some ideas too.
Yeah, we do. But I think we need to get everybody's input on that.
Okay. Well, Grant, what do you think?
I think so. And you could put the Bass, National Bass Corporation people under his hat, and he could look at the bigger picture about what they need to put some fish in, because they do that.
Yeah, because the Department of Fish and Wildlife will not plant bass.
No,
So I already checked with that. I mean, you can buy bass and have them planted, you're gonna pay for them. It's so much an inch, depending on how big the bass are, and, but.
Well, Steve, but you could also delve in, is there any grants? In other words, what you're basically doing is you're just grinding down to, the bottom line of all of these issues, right? And then put it into a nice, neat little presentation for you, nothing, so you don't have to be PowerPoint or anything, just something where they're explaining it, right? And then that would, that would be presented to the advisory board, then we can discuss that at the advisory board level. And then is that something that whatever the topic is that something that we want to then take to the city? Maybe it's the council, maybe it's to the mayor, or city administrator, and say, we recommend as the advisory board that this is the way forward. Yeah, sound like a good idea? Great, great. Yeah. Okay, because we might hit you up, even though you're. You might hit you up.
I might.
Did any of those interest you?
I don't know.
I'll find them.
Education on any of those.
Yeah, because again, the education is gonna be what you and I have a little bit of a passion about, residents getting on their own program. So, okay, you guys want to have any more discussion about that?
Good.
No, we're good?
The
Okay.
committees that we're discussing about the committees.
Yes, any more discussion about that?
Yeah. I just think we need to wait till everybody's here before we start, fine tuning.
Okay, I
I
can
think you should wait till you're not here. Then
And will nominate me, right?
maybe never again volunteer, so. Okay, all righty, so, let's see, all right, well, here we are, we're at the good of the order, okay? All right, so, Jeff, good of the order.
I enjoyed the meeting last time that we had. I think a lot of good things are gonna come out of it. We have a lot of work to do. I'm seeing that. There's a lot of work to do. There is one thing I do want to bring up though, and that's still about the cart. If anybody sees small cart, would they let me know? Because I'm seeing small ones. I haven't caught them yet, but the Department of Fish and Wildlife wants one. They want to find out if these fish are reproducing or not. So I'm getting carp that are 4 foot long and 5 foot long, and I'm getting some that are 1.5 feet long. So I'm trying to figure where the 1.5 foot long is coming from. Unless somebody's still planting them in there we don't know about, or they're reproducing one or the other. So I want to bring that up, that if there's anybody that can get a small one, will let me know so I can get a hold of our gal at the Department of Fish and Wildlife so she can come pick it up. They'll do some testing on it, find out what's going on.
So if somebody sees one, you want them to do with any kind of capture.
That, I don't care how they get it, they need to get that.
Wow. Yeah, so,
I'm not recommending anybody break the law,
yeah.
but we need to try and catch it.
You have to be careful about that. You
Yeah.
can't just say,
Yeah, you can't say that.
all right, so anything else, Joe?
No, that's it.
No, all right, Grant.
I'd like to see a letter go from the city to the fishing game and have them straighten out their fishing laws in their current regulations. On page 2, they say, no carp are to be caught or kept any number or any size statewide. And then there's a little paragraph that says, see page so-and-so. And back in that little page, it says Duck Lake. And it says, in Duck Lake, you can get any carp, any number, any size, however you want.
And what
They
document is
promised
this?
us years ago, they would take that out, and they never did.
That's the fishing regulation.
And, what were you said, page 2 of what document?
Fishing
The
regulations,
synopsis.
you know, that.
When you get
book
your
that-
fishing license, you can get a little book that tells you.
Oh, okay.
Fishing game regulations for fishing. And it's gotta be 3/8 of an inch thick. And on page 2, under the general regulations. The right page, bottom left, it says. Any carp throughout the state is not fishable. Can't take it out, can't take it out of the lake, nothing. But if you go the back to Duck Lake, special regulations, you can take any carp out you want, as big as you want, any size you want. And they promised they would take that out years ago, and they never touched it.
Okay, I'll look at that. Do you happen to have one?
Not in the
No, I'll
car.
go get
You
it.
can get them any
It's on the
hardware.
Land Department of Fish and
All right,
Wildlife.
I'll go online and I'll look and I'll get with you, Grant, and make sure we're talking about the same thing, okay? All right, anything else?
I want to say that you're doing an excellent job.
Okay.
Years ago,
Agreed.
we were fighting the city for anything and everything. There were people, personnel in the city that had, I think, a personal vendetta for somebody in the corporation. And the corporation didn't do everything right, granted, but we created the city board for the Fresh Waterway. And that was to help, Grease's kids who are talking with the board, the city commission. As we've made tons of progress. Looks like we're slowing down on the trees and trimming and stuff like that. But all our corporation is going around with walkers, they're going in the hospital. They got pins, you know, and we just can't do it by ourselves. But over the years, we have scrounged money and we have accomplished a lot of things. And the city is warmed up. And we've got this board here that is mixing the two together, and we're accomplished quite a bit. And a lot of this is due to you.
Okay,
And so I just want to make it clear.
okay, thank you. All right, John, come on.
On the carp subject, Fish and Wildlife want a smaller carp. Is there any way that we can post something on the bulletin boards at the public parks where people are fishing? Obviously not right now, they're fishing a whole lot, but there are still people out there, and come springtime, they'll be fishing more. Is there something that we can post or the city can put on their website that if we catch a small carp that, you know, we'd like to have it for the advisory board for the Fish and Wildlife, which is also part of the conversation of the IVAMP of taking care of weeds and such. Is a carpet is an option. So is there any way that we can post that at parks or through the city website?
I would say what we probably have to do is figure out first, I mean, I hear Jessica is the one that told you that.
And I called one for it, but
Yeah.
he never, the otters came and got it before she came back.
I think we were supposed to put it in the freezer or something.
Yeah, I probably should have, but my wife said it's not going to my freezer.
God. If it happens again, I'll come over and do it. But with what Grant just mentioned, I think we probably need to figure out what that is in reference to and get, I would say, something official from Fish and Wildlife before we post. I mean, saying it here is one thing, but posting it. We probably need to verify that Fish and Wildlife, there's not going to be any issues if somebody, you know, maybe they mistake and they go, oh, well, I didn't know I was supposed to give it to someone in Ocean Shores, let me call Fish and Wildlife. Then Fish and Wildlife goes, Joe Hubachek, who? You know, kind of, the thing, right? But I'll write that down and I'm gonna figure out, well, maybe you and I can get on a conference call or something with Jessica and say, look, we need to nail this down and figure out what's going on with this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Got it. All right, anything else, John?
As far as Grant mentioned, the corporation is in walkers and getting old and being in the hospital. I've been in the board for a very short time, a couple months, and I'm learning a ton. I think there needs to be a lot more involvement within the residents of Ocean Shores. Last couple meetings, we had 20 guests that have been here that have been public, and approximately, like I said, 50 at the city chat. I think there has been a great movement that I've learned in the past couple of years. But I think there needs to be a bigger movement of the people, the public, that becomes more involved with the waterways, the corporation, the advisory board, the city. As I'm learning, it takes quite a bit to get things done through advisory board, city commission making their votes. And I see there's a lot on the plate to handle this, as it's been a 50-year ecosystem and process. And a lot more that's got to be dove into for the end. I guess there will never be a end of keeping everybody satisfied and the waterways clean and so forth. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get a lot of people happy in the city that utilize the waterways.
Okay, perfect, all right, John, Mike.
Grant and I, for some that don't know, specifically about the corporation. The corporation is like the boots on the ground. We go out and we clean, we make sure the waterways are navigable. Case in point, after the ice storm a couple years ago, we lost all those alders all along Fishhook Canal. We did nine days of work out there clearing that stuff out.
Oh,
And trees down, big branches down. And so we are fortunately not on plastic. We haven't had any of those this year. And so this coming spring may not be so bad. So one of our first things was pointed out is one of our very big projects is getting the speed limit, no weight buoys in the water where they're supposed to be. That's gonna take us, I actually got tagged on our Facebook page yesterday about somebody finding one. But yeah, that's gonna be our first big project. We do have some other projects out there clearing back trees and brushes, and as John pointed out, God, I don't have a walker yet, but you know, who knows what tomorrow brings, and we could truly, surely, when we have work parties going, I usually about a week before the work parties will post on all the Ocean Shores Facebook pages from the corporation, date and time, where we're gonna meet, et cetera, et cetera. In the past, sometimes we've had great turnout, sometimes it's just grant me. And so that's all, and that's all I gotta say about that. But one thing too, speaking of the buoys, and I've mentioned this a couple times, this is, and I'm like a moron, I painted this or printed this out in portrait. But these are the signs I've been talking about to replace the existing on the bridges, et cetera, and along Grand Canal, because those, I know the ones across the lake from me on Overlake Bridge, I can see them from the house, but they're nice, pretty little blue signs. These are to kind of take all of the, as I say, play to the lowest common denominator. So it says no wake zone, 5 miles per hour, idle speed. And that takes pretty much all the guesswork out of it, instead of just no wake, because most people don't even know what wake is. And so defense reactions.
Okay. Greg,
Not much, just thanks everybody for letting me on board. If y'all have a number, if the corporation's going out, give me a call, and we want your help, we want that attached.
I'll send you a text thing. I'll send you a text thing. All right, Greg, thank you very much for all of the work that you've done. For Waterways, much appreciated.
I have a request.
Yes,
Before we quit for this day's meeting, can we take a 10-minute break and cruise these photos? Everybody has a chance to look at them. That's the Ocean Shores weed eater. And then we just sit back down again, and if you have any questions, I'll have you.
well, we can adjourn the meeting and then do that,
Okay,
okay? The only reason why I say that is it's not an agenda item.
okay,
And I don't want to kind of go all the way back to new business, right now at
Okay.
this point. But we absolutely can still do that once the meeting is.
okay, no problem.
Are you good with that, Sarah?
Yeah, as long as everybody's not doing it.
Okay. Gotcha. All righty, so I have a good of the order. So just real quick, a couple of things. Hazard report. The hazard report is a report that if you go online, under, is there, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but is there any way you could go to the OS.gov and then to the Fresh Waterways page? And this report is if you see something hazardous in the waterways, you can go to this. It's going to be here on the Fresh Waterways, and right there, that hazard report. There you go. Okay, Now, and once you bring that up, you fill out that form, and then I believe what you have to do is you save it to your computer and then you send it, and at the bottom of that, it has an email. And that email is for Marshall. I think it says OS planning at OS gov.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so this is really important. It kind of goes in line with what folks were saying, you know, and the good of the order with the make no wake. And the idle speed, if you see folks that are out there doing something on the shoreline. I'll be the first one to say, I guess you can look at it and say you're being a tattletale, but I think at this point, when residents are doing something on the waterway that either is unsafe nautical wise, navigational, or if you're speeding through, you're definitely going to cause erosion, which is going to cause issues in the waterways and absolutely cause issues to residents' properties. If you get it, your wake is so much that you got a boat going by, you're going by a boat and the boat goes up and down in the water like this. I got plenty of pictures of that, where you literally could rip the cleats. Anybody know what a cleat is? A boat cleat? You could rip the cleats off of the boat by some of these wakes coming down the Grand Canal or even in Duck Lake. So maybe those folks just don't know. If you say, hey, look, this is what I saw, then maybe that's something that can get worked in, can go through the city. Also, I think it would be good that we could use when we're doing this education program. We can figure out what residents are seeing that maybe is not brought up to us here in a meeting. Okay, so don't look at it as you're being a tattletale. You're trying to, you're there as a watchful eye out on the waterways. Okay. Now it's at our website, and then also if you go to that same osgov.com and you go to Marshall's, which is city planner, there's a link to it there as well. So those are the two places you can find it: the Fresh Waterways Advisory Board page and the city planner page. It is where it is. I found it. There you go, right there. Fresh Waterways Hazard Report Form. A little bit there, halfway and up on the left in that dark blue area.
Oh. I'm not looking there at all. There you
I
go.
know, it took me a minute to find it. I knew it was there. So, okay. And then the second thing that I wanted to do is really quick. I wanted to correct. I found this information after I did the minutes. Plus, it really wasn't part of the meeting, so I couldn't put it in the minute. Previous grants that the city has received. What I did is I painstakingly read every single minutes that this advisory board has ever had, going back to 2011. My wife said I had bloodshot eyes, but I actually came up with right here. There was a grant that was received in 2011, and it was a grant that was specific to target Brazilian Eladia. At the time, that's the issue that we had. Terry alluded to that a little bit in his IAVMP presentation, but also Doug Dorling mentioned it as well. The problem that we used to have had been taken care of. Now the Eladia that we have seems to be a different type of Eladia, and not too much anyway. But that grant, and it was for herbicide treatment. Now, what I found interesting about that, and that's something to remember of how ecology might work, is that the advisory board had specifically requested, her name was not Kathy. Anyways, who was the city planner right before Alicia?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, that's long.
Pat,
No.
Pat Smith was one of them.
No, we're out of my head. All right, I won't waste any more time. Anyways, they had asked her if she could go back to, and she also did grants before
I
Sarah.
know,
Yeah.
and the airport.
Are you a part of it?
Carla.
Carla,
Yeah.
Carla, that was it. And they asked Carla if she could go back to Fish and Wildlife, Department of Ecology, and say, hey, can we use these grants for a different aspect of aquatic management? And they came back with an emphatic no. this is what the grant was for. You probably remember that grant. I don't know if you remember that happening or not, if you were in that meeting that it happened. I saw that in there as a guest. She reported that no, the Department of Ecology said, no, you cannot do that. You have to use it to eradicate this weed, and that was it. So it's something for us to think about when we are going for grants, that I think we're gonna need to be very specific in what we're asking for. And just be mindful that maybe once we get the grant, and we find that we want to use it for something else, maybe it's not as easy just to say, hey, can we do that? Okay, that was the first grant. The second grant that we received was in 2015. And that grant was specifically for the eradication of parrot feather. So there was a parrot feather. This kind of goes back to the question you were asking, Sarah Bisson, had the city received prior grants? So there was one for the parrot feather. And the city in their in kind that they had to give, it wasn't money, it was in volunteer time of going out and looking and taking pictures and documenting and these kinds of things. Very interesting. And that, so 2015 was the last time that the city received any grant for our waterways. And as far as I can tell, I don't see that where the city ever received money. They received a little bit for that KCM report, but that was it. Okay, so if people are thinking about, hey, I'm talking a lot to the residents as well. If you're thinking, well, hey, we can use these grants, for this particular project, just get in there and look at the fine print. That's what I've learned as I'm working with Sarah. And number one, make sure that we are absolutely eligible. It's got to be for fresh water, things like that. If you guys have any comments or anything about the grants in the future, just shout them out and tell me that, outside of the meeting. Okay. So those are the two things that I have for my good of the order. So let's see, it is 3:12. And I adjourn this meeting. The next meeting will be held Monday, 6 March 2023, 2 p.m. here at the library.